On today's show, the Hawks did what they were supposed to do on this Friday evening, holding serve, beating the Sixers, and importantly, clinching the number 8 spot in the Eastern Conference. We'll talk about how it unfolded and more coming up.
You are Locked On Hawks, your daily Atlanta Hawks podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Hello, friends. Welcome to episode 1950 of the Locked On Hawks podcast. I am your host, Rowland, coming to you on a Friday evening here in mid-April. And today's podcast is brought to you by the folks at Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use promo code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. I also want to encourage you at the top of the show, as I always do, to make us your first listen each and every day here at Locked On Hawks. Check us out and subscribe to the show anywhere you find your podcast, whether it's Apple, Spotify, YouTube, etc. We appreciate you checking out the show as always. And we'll be focusing on today's show heavily on what became a 124-110 win for the Hawks in Philadelphia, their 39th win of the year, and importantly, a win that clinches the number 8 spot in the Eastern Conference for the Hawks. And they'll be playing officially now in Orlando on Tuesday in the 7 versus 8 matchup, which we'll come back to later on. Atlanta only had to win one of the last 2 games after winning on Thursday. And by the way, if you missed that podcast, it's still relevant right now. A breakdown of the Hawks win over the Nets on Thursday evening in Brooklyn. But this is the final road game of the regular season for the Hawks on this Friday, the final back-to-back of the season, no matter what happens from this point forward. So a lot of mile markers for the Hawks. It was not always pretty, as we'll get into throughout this game. They were favored by a lot of points, 11.5, according to our friends at FanDuel. Not quite as high as the Brooklyn game the day before, mostly because it was a back-to-back with travel. But similarly to what happened with Brooklyn last night, Philadelphia had a barren roster. They had 8 players available to play in this game, none of whom are firmly entrenched NBA starting caliber players. I like some guys on their team. Adem Bona, Jared Butler, Lonnie Walker are all real players, but they're not top level players. And the Hawks were obviously at a big advantage on the roster standpoint, but they were losing this game at one point. They're actually down by 6 points at halftime of this game. And it was tied at 85-85 with about 30 seconds left in the third quarter. And from there, the Hawks put the game away, mercifully. A 35-17 run over about 9 minutes at the end of the third, into the fourth. And headline, I would say, this game and this win. And yeah, by the way, they ended up covering the spread and winning comfortably to some degree. Big games from Trae Young, Caris LeVert, and Mo Gueye to headline the attack for the Hawks. But they did not play a perfect game at all. In fact, some of my notes throughout this game were pretty dismal, to be honest with you. But they also just finally turned it on. Post-game, I thought it was interesting that, Quinn referenced this. I know the broadcast did with Brian Oliver, Bob Rathman, et cetera. The Hawks just got to turn it on a little bit at halftime. Now, it wasn't always great in the third quarter, but they mentioned George Niang got into the team a little bit at halftime, and Quinn said they just kind of figured out what they had to do after halftime. So there's an excuse a slow start in this game. The Hawks were not perfect, but they did win the game, and that's all that really matters this time of year. It wasn't incredible on offense or defense as a team, I would say. The numbers were better offensively than you might expect, but I would just caution against that a little bit because Philadelphia was playing pretty much small the entire game. There were some minutes that had both Adem Bona and Colin Castleton, but for the most part, they were playing one big and pretty small and a vulnerable team. But the Hawks did score about 1.24 points per possession in this game, which is very, very good. They shot the ball okay, not special, just league average, 48% from the floor, 38% from three. They actually did not shoot well at the rim. They were 18 of 32 at the rim, which is pretty rough, honestly. But they made some floaters. They made some mid-range jump shots, actually, and a rarity for this Hawks team. And they rebounded the ball very well on the offensive glass. They had 18 offensive rebounds in this game. They turned it over a lot, but in the second half, and this is not a coincidence, if you follow this Hawks team this year, when they stopped turning the ball over, they scored a lot better and more efficiently. They had 5 giveaways after halftime, and the results were much better when they stopped losing possessions. 67 points combined from Trae Young and Caris LeVert. Obviously, that leads the way. It was an understated Trae game to some degree. He wasn't making all these incredibly flashy plays, but he ends up with 36 and 10. LeVert has a season high with 31 points off the bench. He was fantastically efficient in this game. There were some support guys as well, from Richeche to Niang on offense, and then I would definitely say Mo Gueye on defense in this one. They were not sharp, but they did score 35 points in a 9-minute period in the second half to kind of turn on the Jets, I would say, put the game away. Defensively, it was a mixed bag, I thought, overall, but the results were pretty good by the end, and they turned the water off after halftime, basically. How much of that has to do with Philadelphia's personnel and talent level versus what the Hawks were doing is up for debate. I think it was a little bit of both in both halves, honestly. The first half, the Hawks defended better than the numbers indicated, I think. In the second half, the Hawks weren't quite as awesome as the numbers indicated defensively, if that makes sense. The Hawks were pretty decent defensively, but it was a lot of bad shot making for Philly after halftime and really great shot making before halftime. For example, Philly shot 2 of 14 from 3 in the second half. The Hawks did force 8 turnovers after halftime to win that battle, I would say. Atlanta did, as they seem to always, generate 9 steals in this one. Dyson had 3 of those. They also blocked 5 shots. So the underlying stuff was fine. We'll get into it a little bit more later as well, but Philly was pretty hot in the first half. Like, for example, the best one is Marcus Bagley, who came into this game. That's the brother of Marvin Bagley, if you don't know that. Marcus Bagley came into this game 1 for 21 from 3 in his NBA career. And he made 4 of his first 5 in the first half, which was kind of, I would say, on brand for this Hawks team, we'll say. But they also, again, clearly did get better and more attentive and executed better in the second half. And I point out the offensive standouts. I have to just say this again. Mo Gueye was tremendous in this one defensively, flying around, doing what he can do defensively. You know, he's still certainly an unfinished product on offense and even defensively sometimes, but the talent level on defense just speaks for itself. He's so long, so active. The motor runs hot. And he was flying around in this game, played a bunch of backup center minutes because Kong got in foul trouble and wasn't his best in this one, but Mo was awesome, a game best plus 21, as we'll get into later. But, he had career highs in rebounds, in minutes played. He tied his career high in steals. Like, Mo was just tremendous and what might have been the biggest single story of the game. Even on a night where Trae and Caris had the big scoring games, Mo might have been the individual standout of the night. Not necessarily the best player, but certainly the best story with the way that he has been emerging right now for the Hawks and, playing a ton of minutes and just playing very, very well. So overall, the Hawks did not play a great game here. I know there's a celebratory tone. They did get into the top 8. And if all you said preseason to anyone who is not a Hawks homer was that the Hawks are going to finish solidly in the top 8 of the East with Jalen Johnson missing 2.5 months, that you have to say that's a pretty decent result. But they also didn't play great in this game. Both can be true at the same time. But as we'll get into at the very end of the podcast, the Hawks, with this win, not only beat a bad team, and that was what happened in this game, they also made sure they don't have to try and push on Sunday, which was a small goal, but a realistic one that was important because the Hawks have been playing pedal to the metal for a while, playing lots of minutes for guys like Trae and Dyson and Onyeka to have a situation now where they can't. I don't know if they will. I won't guarantee it, but if it was me, I would definitely be sitting those guys on Sunday. And if they can give them Saturday, Sunday, Monday to rest and reset for a big, big game on Tuesday, that's a nice small win, I would say, from winning this game and locking into the top 8 seed. But the benefit of being in the top 8 in the East, being 7 or 8, obviously wanted to be 7, but with 8, you do have at least 2 chances now to get into the actual 8-team playoffs. One of them will be on the road on Tuesday, but if you lose that one, you have another chance. Whereas if you're in the 9-10 game, one bad night could sink you. Now you have 2 chances. That's kind of the advantage of being in that 8 spot. So anyway, Hawks have a chance on Sunday if they want to push to get their 40th win of the year. But big picture, a taking care of business road trip for the Hawks, beating 2 bad teams, but they all count in standings. And nothing's assured in the NBA, and the Hawks won this game by the end in relatively comfortable fashion. Okay, we'll get into how this game unfolded. My notes, as I always have throughout the game, some more stats, observations, etc. Plus, at the end of the show, some player-by-player evaluations. And again, I look ahead to Sunday and beyond. All that's coming up in just one moment. Today's show is sponsored by DoorDash. NBA fans, get ready. They swoosh, you save. Thanks to Dash Pass, every time a player has 50 points or more in a game, you can score a huge deal the next day with DoorDash. It's simple. When any player in the NBA has 50 points or more during this season, and the regular season, I should say, Dash Pass members get 50% off and order up to $10 off the next day from noon until midnight. After an epic 50-point performance, celebrate by ordering wings, pizza, or burgers from favorite spots delivered straight to your door. Or you can use Dash Pass for lunch on the go or grab something delicious while saving big with $0 delivery fees and reduced service fees as well. And now save it even more with an exclusive NBA offer that we have here for you. Sign up for Dash Pass and be ready to save when any player has 50 points or more in a game. If you're a member with Dash Pass, 50% off on an order on the next day, up to $10 off. Use the promo code NBA50 from noon until midnight after a 50-point game on eligible orders at participating merchants. Must have an active Dash Pass account. Terms apply. Visit DoorDash to learn more. All right, and a lot of the first half or even the first 2.5 quarters was not the prettiest for the Hawks. As I said before, they were 0-4 from the floor with 2 turnovers to begin the game, not crisp. Trae Young was crisp really the entire game. He and Caris carried the offense quite a bit in this one. Still ended up, even with some advantages late, they still scored more than half the points for the Hawks in this game between the two of them. But Trae had 3 assists right away. One of them was a preposterous, like, full court baseball pass for a layup. He has 1 or 2 of those per game where it's like you have to laugh at Trae's passing. Another one almost happened with Ricochet missing a dunk on a lob, but Trae was dialed in early on. After the Hawks literally led wire to wire, though, on Thursday in Brooklyn and just dominated the game as the Hawks. I think Hawks fans were expecting that to happen again. Could it have happened again? Yes, but you can't expect that. And the Hawks were actually down multiple times in this one after that comfortable win the previous night. Quinn actually used a challenge early on that I don't usually like, but I did say this in real time. If you know, like, for sure you're going to win it in the first half, first quarter even. If you know you're going to win it, you can do a challenge like this. It was basically an out-of-bounds call that they missed. They won it. It's one of those, like, you better be sure challenge, but they were sure, and they won it, so it's not a demerit at all. Rotationally, it was very similar to the previous night, a little bit smaller at times. I won't do the whole thing tonight because it's one of those nights, but the Hawks are still defaulting a little bit smaller than I would personally. Part of that maybe in this game was that Okongwu had foul trouble, but too many of those lineups that have basically, like, just the 2 smaller wings, like a lot of Terrence Mann playing, like, de facto 4 in this game, for instance, Veet with Trae, et cetera, et cetera. So nothing crazy, but notable nonetheless. And we'll see how they actually handle that on Tuesday in a game that matters. Like, at least obviously this game mattered too, but in a game that, like, is for your season basically in some respects. They took a 3-point lead at the end of the first quarter, actually, despite some ugly offensive numbers. They did get to the line 10 times in the first quarter and then stopped doing that after that, other than Trae got to the line 12 times overall, but nobody else got to the line more than twice in the game. They were pretty sloppy in the second quarter, gave up an 11-2 run. Mid-quarter put them down by 8 points, actually. Adem Bona is a prospect that I like, honestly. He was really good in this game. Like, he was probably Philadelphia's best player, even though he didn't have the biggest scoring output for them in this one. I do like him and Butler as their best guys right now, which is a low bar to clear, obviously. But Philly scored 40 points in the quarter. I already gave you the reference about Marcus Bagley, but the fact that he made 4 threes in the first half was kind of funny. It was some bad luck and some bad defense mixed in. It's not one or the other by any means. The Hawks did play, I thought, like crap, honestly, for a lot of the first half, and that showed on the scoreboard. But, you know, LeVert, Ricochet, and Trae come out for 41 points in the first half. LeVert made all 7 of his shots in the first half. Other than Mo's defense, they didn't get a whole lot from anybody else. Dyson had a rough offensive first half. He was 1 of 7 from the floor before halftime. Okongwu had a terrible half, I thought, at least by his standards recently, and 3 fouls, et cetera, et cetera. The Hawks did get back in the game and tie it pretty quickly in the third quarter. It was kind of funny. Philadelphia had 2 points in like 5.5 minutes, and the Hawks only could just tie the game. They got 6 stops in a row, but they couldn't score again for a while. 8 points in like 5.5 minutes. They finally got going with Trae, scored 6 in a row mid-quarter for a 14-4 run overall. And I use the word run kind of loosely. It's more like a 14-4 crawl. It took absolutely forever to happen. 9 of those points from Trae, though. Mo got undercut in a pretty scary fashion. Ended up being fine, thank God, because it looked like it could be bad. Mo has a history of back issues, so that was a little bit scary, but he looks to be fine. Knock on wood there. They played like okay even for a while, and then the start of the big run the Hawks finally had to put the game away was back-to-back threes by Niang and LeVert in the final minute of the third quarter to go from a tie game to up by 6. Trae and Mo Gueye had 19 points in the third quarter combined. That was the same number as Philadelphia's entire team had in the third quarter. But those 2 threes from LeVert and Niang kickstarted things, and that ended up with the aforementioned 35-17 overall run. Dyson made some shots finally after starting 1 of 8 in the game. Made his last 3 shots. They went by 10. LeVert hit a 3 with like 7 minutes to go by 13. LeVert, again, has a season high in this game. Trae had 30 and 10 with like 7 minutes left in the game. It wasn't over, but it kind of would be pretty soon. Trae hit what I thought was like a pretty daggerish 3 with like 4 minutes to go up by 16. And then that was kind of that. Like, it got down to like 10 or 12 again, but it was not really in doubt over the final, 8 minutes, I would say, of the game. So, again, this is not a game that I would send to Springfield. The Hawks have played better than this in losses this season, if that makes sense. I know there's a faction always, it's like, if you win, it's good. If you lose, it's bad. I can't think like that. Like, and also be a very boring podcast if it was only, hey, they won or hey, they lost. I like to give you the whole picture. And the Hawks, I think they would probably admit this with true serum, even they kind of did after the game. They didn't play very well for about 3 quarters. But they did play well for about 9 minutes in the second half. And against this team, this opponent, in this spot, that was more than enough. So we'll leave it there. By the way, before I get to the player-by-player stuff at the end of the podcast, I am recording this before the Kings play tonight. I am recording this Miami's about to beat New Orleans, but that doesn't matter to the Hawks anymore. New to Chicago. I usually would do like a playoff update, but Chicago and Miami are going to play each other in the 9-10. That's now locked in. The Kings pick stuff is still up in the air. There is an argument that I'll mention very briefly later on in the show that the Hawks actually would be helped by losing on Sunday. I don't know if they're going to actually try to lose in some epic fashion on Sunday, but they actually, for just draft purposes, because the game means nothing to them in the standings, they're going to be the 8th seed no matter what happens on Sunday. You could argue, and I did mention this a little bit last week on the show, briefly on the show again, they could go in and not like try to lose, but like wouldn't be averse to losing potentially on Sunday. But we won't know all of the implications until after this podcast posts. So stay tuned on social media throughout the weekend. And again, Sunday's game is not important for any other positioning. So it's all about development. Obviously, you'll see some young guys hopefully in that game. And then also there's some machinations to be had with the Kings pick and all that stuff. Okay. That is all I have on the observations. We'll get into the player-by-player evaluations and more in just one moment. Today's show is brought to you by Gametime. There's nothing like the energy of a live game with catching up on a last-minute MLB showdown or soaking in the action and the excitement of an NBA matchup in person. But finding great seats at a great price, that used to be a challenge until I found Gametime. Gametime actually makes scoring last-minute tickets easier than ever. Prices actually drop as the event gets closer. With their all-in pricing, you can see the total cost up front with no surprises at the end of the checkout process. I love using Gametime for many reasons. One of them is the last-minute deals. Save 6% off buying last minutes for sports, concerts, comedy, theater, and more. Also, you can grab last-minute seats for Hawks games or Braves games, save big with their zone deals. And also, they have seat views before you buy, no surprise fees, and a lowest price guarantee. And all that means you can book with total confidence at Gametime. The lowest price guarantee means that I never have to worry about overpaying for tickets as well. And you can take all of the guesswork out of buying tickets with the folks at the Gametime app. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use promo code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, that code is LOCKEDONNBA. LOCKEDONNBA, Locked On NBA, for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Download the Gametime app today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. All right, 10 guys played in this one for Atlanta. Don Barlow played about 2 minutes because Okongwu got in foul trouble at the end of the first half, and Mo had just played a long time, so they went to Dom. He didn't kill them. They were plus one of his minutes, but he was largely a non-factor, so it was mostly 9 guys who appeared for Atlanta. The only guy who was in the minus, and the plus-minus, was Vit Krejci, -5, 2 points, an assist, and a rebound for Vit. He was quiet, I think defensively kind of rough in this one, not a huge factor offensively, and didn't play a lot. I think that was the right decision. For the most part, Quinn could have pushed a little bit harder at times, I thought, but they did play guys a lot of minutes that they usually play a lot of minutes, even for a back-to-back. Dyson 37, Trae 36, LeVert played 30 off the bench. Okongwu had foul trouble, he would have played more. So they didn't go deep into the bench a lot, and Vit was kind of the last man standing on the rotation, which made sense. He was probably their worst player overall in this one. Terrence Mann was the other candidate for that. Mann had 5 points in 19 minutes, was 1 of 4 on twos, 1 of 3 from 3, had an assist. Just some breakdowns from Terrence Mann in this one, just some weird, in the wrong place at the wrong time, weird decisions. He took a very bad shot in the second half at one point of the possession, just kind of went to nowhere. So the Hawks are going to play him. I think Quinn is going to lean on him. He's been showing that in recent days. But I'll be interested to see how much or how little he plays on Tuesday when the lights come on. Because if it's me, I would lean into more of Richelet and more of LeVert and less of Mann and less of Krejci. That'd be my general operating mandate going into Tuesday if it was me. George Niang had a good game because he made shots. 16 points on 4 from 3, 2 6 on 2s, 3 rebounds. He actually was +8 in his minutes. Defensively, obviously, George can be exploited, but he actually was fine, I thought, mostly in this game. Had a technical foul that was kind of a bad moment for him. He gets frustrated sometimes, but made shots, and usually the results are pretty good when he makes shots. Caris LeVert, a season high, 31 points, +13 in the game. He was 8 of 10 on twos, 4 or 5 from 3, 3 5 at the line. Caris is actually, as I talked about last night, been in a shooting slump, and that was not the case here. He was seeing a big basket tonight, making everything in sight. Played great. I trust Caris LeVert. I think he is certainly the guy off the bench that I trust the most. I think the Hawks will agree with that. He's their 6th man right now. I think he'll be playing starter-level minutes in the games that really matter beginning on Tuesday, whether that's 28 minutes or more. I would lean into that. And, it would not surprise me if he closed the games with Richelet, which is obviously a give and take, but I think that he's definitely the 6th guy beyond the starters would be what I would say. To the starters in this game, actually. Okongwu had a rough game by his standards. Now, it may not have been as bad as the box score indicated, but, and I say this, I try to give you the context of like adjusting for player quality. Like, not everybody's games are the same based on their normal. I try to compare to their baseline. And Okongwu's baseline has risen quite a bit in the last like 3 months. He's been playing excellent, like lights out, firmly entrenched, top 15, 20 center in the league kind of level for like 3 months now. So I'm judging him off of that, but he was not particularly good in this game. Now, the foul trouble was there. That was part of it. Did I get 8 rebounds, but 4 turnovers in the game? That's kind of weird for him. He was 2 of 4 on twos, but 0-3 from 3. No free throw attempts. Got beasted a little bit by Dembono a few times. Like, I don't think he was a disaster, but it was not a good Okongwu game, I didn't think. And they didn't need it, fortunately. And I do think that he, above maybe everybody, but maybe he and Dyson, really could use a day off. Like, Okongwu's been playing more than he's ever played in his life for the last 3 months, basically. And especially lately in the post-Capella, post-Nance world. So a day off for him on Sunday would be making sense to me. But he's been great. Not worried at all. Just wasn't his best game, I didn't think. Risha Shea, 12 points and 3 rebounds for him in 26 minutes. He was 5-7 on 2s, 0-2 from 3. Really juiced them in the offensive like running game. He got out and pushed the pace, especially in the first half. Hawks ended up with like 26 fast break points, I think, in this one. Part of that was because he was able to really, really, really get out there and push. And that's been a huge weapon for him for a while. But I like to see that. Otherwise, he was just fine. He didn't do anything else that's spectacular, but was certainly fine in this game. Dyson Daniels had a very, very weird game. So I kind of tongue-in-cheek made this comment with different numbers during the game. But I thought Dyson was like not good for his standard, again, for his standard. But I say that in kind of a funny way because he ends up the game with 10 rebounds, 8 assists, 3 steals, and 2 blocks as a guard. Guys don't do that. Like, that's a great, again, 10 rebounds, 8 assists, 3 steals, 2 blocks as a guard. And he didn't play very well by his standards because offensively he was rough in this one. He was at one point he was 1 of 8 from the floor. Did make his last 3 shots in the fourth quarter, which was helpful. But weird game for him. 37 minutes. Like, obviously he was effective overall, but offensively it was one of his worst games in a while. I love him. He's fantastic, but that's just what it was. Mo Gueye, I mentioned before, was really awesome in this game. 10 points, 18 rebounds, 3 steals, 2 assists. He had career high, not just season highs, career highs in minutes with 33, in offensive rebounds with 9, in overall rebounds with 18, and he tied his career high with 3 steals, all in the same game. Now, he played more than he was probably going to play normally because of the foul trouble to Okongwu, but even before that, they were playing him a lot because he was playing well. And I think that it's good to potentially give Quinn and the staff confidence in Mo going into Orlando because they're going to need him in Orlando. That's that matchup. They really need Mo to both play well and play a lot, I think, given the physicality of Orlando, given the fact that Okongwu is the primary matchup on Boncaro. Playing Okongwu and Mo together more will allow you to play Gay on the back line, rim protection, all that stuff. So this game being timed this way is really good to inspire that confidence potentially, but he was really good in this one. Offensively, like, it's never like perfect, but he made a lot of plays. And look, there is a weapon, like a bona fide weapon Mo has on the offensive side of the floor is rebounding. Now, 3-point shoot, he's not a non-shooter. That definitely helps. But there's always been like, what is he going to do on offense? Is he going to stand in the corner? Is he going to crash? When he crashes, the results are pretty good. So anyway, I thought he was really good in this game and a gold star for Mo across the board. And then Trae Young was, I refer to it as semi-quietly excellent in this game. 36 points, 11 assists for Trae. 3 turnovers is obviously great for him on a high usage basis. He was 4 of 9 on 2s, but 6 of 13 from 3, and got to the line 12 times. He was in total control, was awesome in this game, as he often is. His 91st career game with 30 points or more and 10 assists or more. He is 4th all-time in that stat. And as a reminder, Trae Young is 26 years old. If you are 4th all-time, and a stat like that at 26 years old, you are doing something right, and Trae is quite good. So we'll leave it there for now. All right, that's all I have on the game. One more little plug for the rest of the weekend. So it's Friday night right now. Game 82 is Sunday afternoon. It's Palm Sunday. It's a 1 o'clock Eastern time start against Orlando. I believe it's the only game all year that's that early for the Hawks, at least that I can remember. 1 o'clock. The whole league basically is playing on Sunday, and the East teams are playing at 1, and the West is playing at 3:30 with a couple of exceptions. So that's why they don't want people to be like, know what's going to happen. They want to have that like head-to-head NFL style, soccer style thing where everybody's playing. I get it. But right now, for interest purposes, like nothing matters in that game as far as like the standings are concerned between the Hawks and the Magic. Orlando's 7th, Atlanta's 8th. The only thing that might matter is draft positioning with regard to the Kings. That's literally the only thing that might actually, quote unquote, matter in that game. Aside from development, obviously, if the Hawks do rest some guys, and I'll say it one more time, if it was me, I would definitely not play Trae, Dyson, or Kanu. Definitely. I would personally not play Caris LeVert either, as a guy who has a history of injury, older player, etc. Those 4 guys for me would not play on Sunday. Now, if the Hawks were fully healthy, they could probably sit a lot of guys. But because they only have 13 active available players because of injury stuff, like you can't sit everyone. Like you got to pick a couple guys that have to play. So I think Ricochet probably plays. We'll see. He may not. We'll see. Mo Gueye, same thing. LeVert, Mann, Niang, etc. I do think that we will. If I had to guess, again, I'm not reporting this is going to happen. It's just logical. I think it'll be the wrong choice if those guys play on Sunday, given the workload they've had for a while. I would be leaning heavily on Keaton Wallace, Daquan Plowden, Garrison Matthews, Don Barlow. Those guys will be playing a lot of minutes for me on Sunday, if it's my choice as the Hawks. But we'll see on that. It could be getting pretty weird. Like sometimes that last game of the year can get weird. Last year, I believe, was an instance of this. Like it could be silly. So I'll have a podcast as I always would to talk about the game, but it might not be in the same kind of detail as it usually is. I will look ahead a little bit to the game on Tuesday on that podcast, and then also reset potentially the Kings pick stuff. What's going on there? There are some machinations involved with the Kings pick. They're going to be in the play-in, which is good news for the Hawks, but where they actually stack up won't be finalized until maybe even the lottery night, but especially not until the play-in is done. People, I get every day a question about that, which I definitely understand that, but the Hawks are in good shape, but not pristine shape on the Kings pick. Anyway, that's all I have on today's show, but stay tuned. I will have a podcast on Sunday after the game. I'll be in the building for that one Sunday afternoon, so I'll come home and record, and we'll reset things a little bit in advance of the game. Again, but it's already set. Tuesday is the big one. Tuesday in Orlando, 7 versus 8. Winner gets the Celtics in the first round. Loser gets the opportunity to play on Friday against either the Bulls or the Heat, and the winner of that game will get the Cavs. So stay tuned. We'll have much more coming up. And by the way, in between, I will probably have a show Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. It'll be busy. So please go ahead and subscribe to the podcast anywhere you find your podcasts. That includes Apple and Spotify. That also includes YouTube. So please like this video as you're watching it there, and leave comments and ratings and reviews, all that fun stuff, and help us to spread the word. If you know Hawks fans in your life, and I'm sure you know somebody in your life that's a Hawks fan other than yourself, tell them about the show. Either email it to them or text it to them or social media or whatever. Spread the word for us. I really appreciate that. And also follow the show on X/Twitter at Locked On Hawks. I am on there at BT Rowland. I'm also on Blue Sky at BT Rowland. And then also my non-podcast work can be found at patreon.com/BT Rowland. Check that out as well if you are so inclined. All right, everybody, enjoy the rest of your Friday evening into Saturday. And I'll have a podcast after the game on Sunday. Stay tuned. We'll see you all next time.